Hey everybody, today I'm talking about Peloponnes, which is a board game designed back in 2009 by Bernd Eisenstein. This one accommodates 1 to 5 players and takes around 45 minutes to play. So I would describe this as a risk aversion and bidding style game that looks like this when it's on the table. So you've got your money tokens here, which are kind of in gold and silver denominations, meaning 3 or 1 coin respectively. You've got your tiles here, which are going to come out throughout the game, and you're going to have 3 different piles, an A, B and C category, and the game is going to play out over 8 rounds, 3 of which are going to be in the A phase, 3 in the B phase, and then 2 in the C phase. You're going to have the tiles that are going to come out for that particular round. Depending on the player count, you might have this conquest tile here, which means that a number of tiles are going to be more expensive, but mean that you're protected from being outbid by other players. And you've got these disaster tiles here, which can really mess you up or kind of foil your plans throughout the game. You've got the disaster tiles, which dictate the pace in which these disasters are resolved in. And more importantly, you've got your own individual player area, which looks like this, where you have this sheet here which tracks all the different resources you have throughout the game, such as your wood, your stone, your food, your population itself, and also your luxury goods here, which are basically a proxy and an overflow of the other goods, which you can spend at a 2-to-1 ratio. So before the game even begins, you're going to get given a particular kind of city you're controlling. So you can see here, I've got this Syracuse tile here, which means that I start with 5 coins, like so, and I start with a population of 4. So I'd move my little tracker here to 4. This also means that I produce a stone at every income phase, and the kind of boon for this particular tile is that I do not have to worry about that plague tile coming up and attacking me. So I've got that kind of in the bag, and I do not have to worry about losing my population when that particular disaster is triggered. And you can see here as well, each of these tiles has a kind of initiative value here, which for the first round is going to determine who bids first. So I think the lower value goes first, and the player order is going to be determined using this little track here. So you can see I'm the yellow player, then it'll be the red player, and then it will be the blue player. So using this little card here as a reference, let's take a look at how the game actually plays out. So the first thing you do is that you reveal tiles, which you can see I've already done here, revealing these 5 tiles, and then you're going to go straight in to a bidding phase. And that is where you're going to use your coins here in order to claim these tiles. Now you can always choose not to bid and take 3 coins from the bank, but generally you will be bidding because this is how you're going to acquire victory points and acquire resources to help you overcome all those horrible threats. So first off, you're gonna, in player order, you're going to choose to assign a number of coins next to these tiles, bearing in mind that this symbol or this figure here in the bottom left is the minimum bid that you can put next to that particular tile. So I'd need to bid at least 3 to gain this tile here. And this is going to be the victory points it's going to give me at the end of the game. And this here is going to be the resources that that particular tile produces at every kind of income phase. So let's just say me as the yellow player really wanted some stone. I could put my 3 coins next to stone here like this. Then it'll go to the red player. Let's say they wanted this tile here. So they put 2 next to that one, and then let's just say the blue player goes last and puts their coins next to this one. Now, fortunately, in that example, we all kind of not competed for the same tiles, but if we did compete for the same tiles, and say somebody wanted to kick me off this one here by spending 4 coins, then I would have to move this either to another tile, as long as I could afford it, or take that back to my personal supply with an additional coin to go with that. So you've got to be careful about what you bid, because you don't want to bid too high so that you're spending too much, but you don't want to bid too low that you can be kicked off and not go anywhere else, because you want to be collecting these tiles. Now the bonus of any tiles next to this conquest one here, like the top row in this example, you're going to have to pay an additional fee of 3 coins. So this is going to be a minimum bid of 6. However, you do not have to worry about being outbid, because nobody can chuck you off that particular location. So once that bidding is resolved, you're going to go straight into the adjust player turn order action, which is depending on who spends the most money. So in this example, yellow spent the most here by spending 3, so they would go first, and the other 2 have spent the same, so therefore they would stay in the same order. But if somebody spent way more than the others, they would become the first player in the following turn. And once that's done, you are going to take that particular tile and add it to your little tableau in front of you. So let's say I took this one here. I can add it to my little city here like this, providing as long as these tiles here with the different kind of grass and rock on them match an existing symbol like this, or actually the first one doesn't matter, but in the future, if I wanted to collect this tile here, I could not actually place it because I would need to have at least one stone correlating to it before I could play it. So you can't just jump straight from one resource to the other. You almost have to phase it over, which is quite an important consideration. And when you take it, you're going to also take any bonuses with it. If you take one of these completely grey tiles, you're going to put them to the other side of your kind of capital here. You're going to pay the resources as long as you can afford it, and then get the bonus with it as well, such as getting the resources, or getting coins, or this, for example, getting population. So you can get 1, 2, 3 population, increasing my population to 7. Now, if you cannot afford a particular tile, but you did win the bid, you can still take it, but you have to assign a coin to it, which means that it's not active yet, but when it comes to a particular triggering by a certain tile coming out, then you need to be able to afford it by that time. So regardless if you could afford that or not, you're always going to get your population, but then you're going to go into the income phase, which is where you're going to start taking all your rewards here. So you can see from my little setup, I'm going to gain 1 food, therefore I'd move my little food token up. I'm going to get 4 stone here, so I'll go 1, 2, 3, 4. So I suppose we should talk about why we need resources in the first place. Of course, we need them in order to build particular tiles. Now, like this one here needs 3 stone and a wood, and in order to acquire that, I'm going to need to have those resources. But also, you're going to need those resources such as food, because whenever one of these tiles comes out with this particular symbol on it, then you need to feed your people. So you can see here I have a population of 7. Let's say I had 5 food. For each population I have, I'm going to have to spend a food. So it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can see here I've got a deficit of 2. Therefore, I'm going to have to kill 2 of my population, which is not a good thing because population is going to play a big part when it comes to final scoring. This tile is also important because if you have not completed any buildings, as I said earlier, when you take a tile and you couldn't afford the resources on it, you put a coin on it, this is your last opportunity in order to fulfill that particular tile before it goes away forever. So again, these are put you under a bit of pressure in order to get things done and have enough food. Now it also ties into the next part of the game, which is reveal disaster chits. And when you do that, you are going to take 2 of these tiles at random. You're going to flip them over, and then you're going to place them on the corresponding location on the tile. So this one here will say an earthquake one. This one here is a decline one. And this is kind of another countdown mechanism. As soon as there's 3 tokens of the same type on one of these tiles, then it's going to trigger that disaster immediately, which can be pretty devastating. You know, for example, this decline one here will let you lose luxury goods. This will let you lose a third of your, or force you to lose a third of your food. This one here, for each of your grey tiles, you're going to have to pay a wood and a stone, which is another reason why you need those resources, because you're going to lose those tiles, which is victory points. This one is the same, but with food and coins, but with these landscape tiles. And this one here lets you lose, or forces you to lose, a third, rounded up, of your population. And once that's done, you're going to basically re-rack the table here, ready to play a new round and start again from the beginning. So as I said, you're going to play 3 rounds in A, 3 rounds in B, and then 2 rounds in C, and then you're going to go into the final scoring. So the end of the game is going to look something like this, where each player's collected a number of tiles. You can see here I've got all 8 tiles, 1 for each round, and of course you're going to have the resources that you've acquired after your final income. And then you're going to go into, again, final scoring, calculating how many points you've got. So the way the scoring works is quite interesting, where you compare 2 different factors. The first of which is adding up all your tiles and then adding any money you have, basically a 1 to 3 ratio. So for every 3 coins you have, you're going to get an additional point. So you can see here, I've got 5, I've got 12, 16, 19, 22, 26, 27, 28, 29, and then 29, 30 points basically. I've got 30 points in total in that particular category. And then I'm going to take a look at my other category, which is the population times by 3. So that is going to be 11 for a total of 33 points. And then you're going to take the lowest of the 2 as your final score. So again, my final score would be 30 in this example. And of course, the person with the most points at the end is going to be the winner. So let's go into some final thoughts on Peloponnes. So first off, mechanically the game is pretty damn simple. Just revealing tiles, bidding on those tiles, taking those tiles, increasing your population, increasing your income in a later round, and then going into revealing those disaster tiles. And these disaster tiles add so much flavour to the game. They add a lot of attention to the game as well, because you are only revealing 2 randomly at the end of each round. And the order in which these trigger is massively important, because earlier in the game you might have a bit of spare wood and you might only have one of these grey tiles and a bit of stone, and you only have to do it once. But if that one ends up coming later in the game, that can be pretty damn crippling. And the same applies to the food and the luxury goods as well. If you don't have any luxury goods to waste, then that's a really good time that you can afford to take that disaster. And the same applies to the food. If you only have a little amount of food, then you might only have to waste a couple. Whereas if you have an absolute ton stored up, then that's going to be pretty. It's going to hit you pretty damn hard. So I do like the way that this really does dictate the flow of the game, and really does change each time you get the game to the table, because these are always going to trigger in different orders. And I also love the way that there's 3 kind of blank tokens in there, because sometimes it'll be a really kind of easy going game, at least for the first half, and then all of a sudden all those third tiles start coming out and hitting you hard, or it can be kind of more evenly spread. Again, that plays a massive factor on your strategy and the resources you want at any time, because again, if you know that the earthquake is coming up anytime soon and you're really low on stone and wood, then you might really be trying to vie to bid high for a particular tile that provides a lot of stone and a lot of wood. So that has a real cool dynamic feel to it, where you're not only trying to gain these tiles based on the points they're going to get you, the income they're going to get you, whether you can afford it in the first place, but also those kind of ongoing income bonuses in order to fight those threats and to ultimately get you victory points. The bidding mechanism itself is rather simple. You've got a minimum bid here. I'm putting your tokens on there, potentially getting pushed off to another spot, or kind of retreating and taking additional coin to give you better fare in future bids. And of course, you can just pass and take 3 if you want to, which is not a bad option if there's nothing you particularly need at that time. But I do love this conquest action here, where if you are dead set on getting something, you need it, you can actually choose to pay a bit of a premium to get it, but you are safe and you've locked in and nobody can steal that from you. And of course, again, you're considering a number of things, such as even getting money back, or of course increasing your population. But increasing your population is a bit of a double-edged sword, because while it's great for scoring, it's not so good because you need the food in order to feed those people in the first place. So there's a lot to consider here. How you're going to manage your money, how you're going to use your resources without without wasting them, really, because you don't want to have too much overspill by going into the luxury goods, because that conversion rate gets worse and worse. If you're 5 wood short, you're going to have to spend 10 luxury goods, which is not so. You don't get so much bang for your buck, whether in comparison if you had the exact right amount of the particular resource you need. So while it's a great contingency, it is a lot more wasteful than if you get too much of a certain resource each time. And the additional restriction of these landscape tiles having to kind of follow suit from the previous ones, the stone going into the stone, the wood going into the wood, the food going into the food, it's okay. I don't think it helps the game tremendously, but I suppose it does give you another thing to kind of push you into a corner. I mean, that when a particular tile comes out that lets you blend into another resource, it's probably going to be a bit more enticing for you to get that one and to start spending the big bucks to ensure that you get it into your tableau and nobody else's. So I do like the way that works. And also the 2 different factors here, the one following that suit and the other one just spending up the resources is a really good blend of the 2. And some of them as well give you additional bonuses, like this one here means that when I bid the same of somebody else, so say somebody bid 4 on this one, I also bid 4, my 4 is counted as kind of half a fraction higher than theirs, so therefore I could kick them off that spot and take it for myself. So there is some different decent powers here on the tiles, as well as just getting the resources and getting the population, such as the ones that let you overcome the different threats. I think those are pretty cool. And let's see if I can find one here. So like this one here, for example, if I get this one and I know that the Tempest action is going to come out soon, but I don't have the food, I don't have the money to spend, then if I invest in this one, then I do not have to worry about that one at all. So these are a great thing to have in your back pocket to overcome those horrible disasters. The time investment of this game is utterly fantastic. This is a pretty involved game, at least in relation to that time frame. It does take 45 minutes, probably at maximum, to play this one, which I think is utterly brilliant. Now, you don't get many crunchy involved games like this taking that amount of time. It's a rare exception that happens, and I think this one does offer a great, satisfying experience considering, again, that 45-minute time frame. Just a brilliant little niche in my collection that not many games achieve that. So yeah, full props to how quick this game is. Additionally, the uptime is fantastic because you are, of course, bidding is a kind of a dynamic, interactive mechanism anyway, where people are involved and considering what people have bid. But most of the game can be played simultaneously. You can do all your income simultaneously. You don't have to worry about anybody. The disaster tiles are going to involve everybody. So yeah, most of it you are not. There's almost no scope to lose interest here. The replayability of the game is also decent. As I mentioned earlier, the pacing of the disasters is going to change the feel from game to game. Additionally, you do not use all the tiles every game. There's always some left over, so you're not always going to get the same array of tiles, and that can play quite a big part because if these tiles don't come out, then you don't have to worry about feeding your people that extra time. And each game is going to feel different in the way it plays out. Additionally, there is quite a variation in these different hometowns that you can start with that do different things. Some of them don't let you worry about particular disasters. Some of them will give you like a wild resource each time. Some of them you don't have to worry about disasters at all, but you have to lose a population each income phase. So yeah, these are very slight. They're not a tremendous amount different from one another, but they just do add that little bit of variation just if you want to try something different. The production and artwork of the game is going to be somewhat divisive, I think. Yeah, it's very synonymous with the time this came out. This was a Euro that came out in 2009 when Euros aren't so... They didn't have the bells and whistles that they do nowadays, but I happen to think it is a real nice nostalgic feel to it. Just no nonsense, just pure, no frills. I like the way it looks. I mean, the player boards themselves, it would be nice if they were a bit thicker. These are basically just thin cardboard, and all your player pieces are just these discs. But for me, that's what I tend to like. I find it charming, and I've got no issues at all with that. So probably what you'd expect with a game from this age, but it's all functional, so as long as it works, I don't really have a tremendous issue with it. Additionally, the game does scale very well from that, well, it actually says 1 to 5 players. I've not tried the solo mode, but I can see this one working for solo because, again, you are trying to overcome those threats. But at that, for me personally, that 3 to 5 player mark, this one works so well. And if you want to play a more involved game at 5 players that isn't your standard party game, then this is a really good option if you can manage to track a version of this game down. So overall, I think Peloponnes is a delightful little Euro. Again, very rarely do I come across a game that you can play in 45 minutes or so. From that 3 to 5 player mark, no problems. That offers the decisions and the satisfaction that this game does. I absolutely love this disaster token system that really does, again, take that pace of the game, makes each game feel different. Are they going to hit you early? Are they going to hit you later? Are they going to be more spread out? You just do not know. And while that can be, I suppose, swingy depending on the current position of your board, that is where the fun really lies for me. And I love just balancing out all my resources. What do I need to acquire the tiles I want? What can I take without being too much income and having too much overspill to take these luxury goods? Well, they're great because they're flexible. They are not as efficient as the others. And managing your population without going too much, keeping your 2 scoring systems balanced so that, again, you're not wasting anything, is all part of that Euro fun. So yeah, I think this is a really nice game considering how long it takes. I mean, even without considering how long it takes, it's great. But because you can play it in such a succinct time frame, it really does kind of stand head and shoulders above a lot of these other games that try to offer this experience in that time, but often are they're a bit too light and don't offer enough crunch. But this one certainly does, and I think it's brilliant. Hopefully you can find a copy if this interests you. I know I've been after this game for a long time. I finally found a copy. Had to pay a bit of a premium to get my hands on it, but I think it's worth it because the game is it's a gem. And this one definitely gets my shield of quality. That is Peloponnes.